How are you, Marv?
Okay, how you doing, Rich? What a shame regarding Rajon Rondo, because that was developing into one of the surprise stories of the playoffs, and that kind of came out of nowhere, particularly the way the Celtics had been playing, and how the series just turned. Who knows now what's going to happen? But it's going to be very, very tough without Rondo. And what a strange year he's had, because actually he was benched on two separate occasions this year.
Yeah, I know, and him saying after Game 1 that Hoiberg had the team prepared, that he was complimenting it. I mean, there seemed to be kumbaya happening in a spot you never thought that would occur again between those two, Marv.
Correct. Yeah, they've had such a emotional up and down season. At one point, Jimmy Butler was critical because the Bulls that were there in previous years were so accustomed to the hard-charging Tom Thibodeau had done a great job with Chicago, and would be a guy who would work the team very, very hard. There'd be long practices. He would play guys big minutes. And Fred Hoiberg was a very good coach, but came in with a different style, different personality, and it was it was like havoc going. And you'd never think. First of all, they were very fortunate to make the playoffs on the final day, but the fact that they were able to beat the Celtics twice in Boston is pretty astounding.
Marv Albert joining me here on the Rich Eisen Show. Okay, I had some fun at the top of my show, Marv, because so many people in our business like to chop down LeBron and hack at him, saying that last night's comeback would not have been a record had he been able to come back from larger deficits before. Just had my fun with LeBron. Where do you think LeBron stands in the pantheon of people that you've seen play in front of you, Marv, over the decades?
Oh, well, no question, one of the all-time greats. Times are so different in terms of media and particularly social media, and everybody able to fire criticisms out there. But he and of course you have Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love also, but LeBron can carry a team, and there are so many questions about the Cavaliers. We did their opening game, and it was not easy. They've been blowing big leads recently, and even though Tyronn Lue won't really fess up to it completely, this is a team with defensive problems, and they have not played well defensively, and it's really a very isolation-geared club, which is not always wonderful to watch, as good as they are, but it's basically LeBron and Kyrie, and then they were able to get Kevin Love also involved, with the mismatch with Stevenson in the game that we did. So he's one of the great players of all time. It's very difficult to criticize LeBron James, even at this age and with all the mileage that he has. The fact that he plays as he does now and can just take over a game with, I know people use the word will so readily, but it's more than will. It's a lot of skill, and he can do it in many ways because he came into the league as Michael Jordan did without having a reputation of being a terrific shooter, and he's made himself into a very good shooter. So, the only problem he has as of late is at the foul line, which, I know he's doing a lot of experimenting. That sometimes works, sometimes it doesn't. But I don't see how you could, say anything negative.
And what do you make? What do you make of the Warriors, Marv? Are we all just whistling into the wind here until the Warriors just finish the inevitable and take care of business?
Well, I don't know, Rich, if it's inevitable, but. Right now the question is getting Durant back, even though they did go through large stretches of the season when he was out, excuse me, and did play well. But he has to not only come back, if he does come back for the game tomorrow, he'll have 5 days rest, but you still have to get into the rhythm of the rest of the team. So that remains to be seen. And the two key losses for them, along with Durant being out, Matt Barnes and Sean Livingston, both who have played very well. So they have three guys out of their rotation. We did the game the other night, and they obviously didn't have any problems against Portland. But it's very tough to win in Portland. And Portland is a pretty solid team. I mean, they were one of the hottest teams in the league over the last month and a half. And the backcourt of McCollum and Lillard was sensational that first game, but they were completely, it's a completely different story in game two. But Portland can get a game or two out of the series, whether Durant comes back or whether he does not. But I don't think it's, injuries are so critical. As you obviously with the Rajon Rondo, that's could turn that series around completely, and you just don't know. I mean, from Golden State's point of view, they would love to wrap the series up quickly because the fewer games you play, the less chance you have players getting injured.
Sure, and next up for you, you're going to have Giannis Antetokounmpo sitting right in front of you.
Yeah. Yes, or as we usually say, Giannis.
Giannis, yes, that's it.
Yeah, but you handle it very well, Antetokounmpo. It keeps rolling around in my mind constantly. That name.
Basically, you giving me any sort of kudos for pronouncing Antetokounmpo to me is a career highlight, Marv. I got to be honest with you.
That is excellent, really.
Thank you.
That's rehearsal time.
Well, that's what it's odd. My wife thinks it's strange that I say that word into the mirror over and over again before I come to work.
I do the same. It's very sad. It really it really is.
But he's got a chance here. He's got a chance here to snap some lapels back and make a statement and step to the fore of superstardom. Marv,
he is sensational. I've never seen a player. There's nobody to compare him to because of his length, the wingspan, his speed, the fact that he can handle the ball, he can shoot the ball. I don't know if there is a comparison because obviously the athlete, in every sport, the athletes have come such a long way from 10, 20 years ago. But he's unusual, and he is going to be a perennial all-star. I mean, he is really special, and the Bucks have something brewing here. I mean, they're a pretty good team.
Yeah, and they might be next for the Cavs. Before I let you go, Marv, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about the Knicks. And just setting up, I've told you this before, and I've told the audience as well. I'm fortunate what I do for a living. The reason why I wanted to do what I did for a living, in part, is because I grew up listening to you call Knicks games, fell in love with the sport, fell in love with sports casting, fell in love with the Knicks, in many parts to you, the man to whom I'm talking right now. And
thanks. I appreciate that. I think you heard the Knicks in better days. Too,
yes. I mean, but all that said, the reason why I set that up with that preamble, in a way, is I thought of you when what happened with Charles Oakley, and I thought of you and all the people that I grew up with, and what the Knicks meant to me, and what the Knicks stood for, and those people who stood for all that. What did you think of that moment when Charles Oakley was dragged out of Madison Square Garden with James Dolan sitting there watching it happen? Marv?
It was astonishing. It was surreal. That kind of stuff just doesn't happen, and certainly could have been handled in a different way. I wasn't there to see exactly what happened, but we've all read about what took place, and it's sad what has happened the last 15, 20 years, and in terms of management and the way things have been handled, and there's been such a lack of success, and people still do show up. They sell out every game. It's just a wonderful place to see basketball. And they did great things with the arena, but player judgments and people who run the team. There have been so many bad decisions that have been made. It has really not been good since. Mike Woodson had one very good year, and then they broke it up. Donnie Walsh at the time was the general manager, and I thought they were really on their way. They won 54 games, and I thought they were on their way to really turning things. And prior to that, the last success was Jeff Van Gundy and Pat Riley and Dave Checketts, and that was terrific. Through the 90s and early 2000s, and it's really a shame because you have great fans there. Of course, you have people in every city say they're great fans, but and they still show up and have this hope at the start of the season. And when Phil Jackson made the moves, I mean, there are people who I think know basketball but got excited about Joakim Noah and Derrick Rose. And although Rose did not have a bad year, but he's not the same guy. And Joakim is, was a wonderful player for Chicago over many years, but he's been hurt the last 2 years. I don't know how you make a deal like that. I just don't understand that. So, I mean, there are so many factors involved, but it's just too bad.
Marv, I just wanted to ask that, and I guess on a more positive note, from back in the Halcyon days, to see Patrick Ewing coaching Georgetown. I mean, what's that going to be like when he stands there against St. John's and there's going to be Mullen versus Ewing? I mean, that's an old school
pairing. It's
pairing.
a great moment at the start, but Chris still has to recruit. Better players and convince guys to come to New York. And I love Chris and Patrick too. They have a yeoman's job ahead of them in recruiting players. So that opening moment when they introduce the coaches will be fine. But after that, and we'll see what happens in a very tough league now. The Big East has come right back so strong. I'm not so sure that either team is going to have immediate success.
Well, maybe, we can have a Louis Carnesecca, John Thompson.
With the sweater.
Right, with the sweater and then the towel, and then we can get all that.
Absolutely.
And then we'll get Mullen and Patrick going. Marv, thanks so much for calling in. I already look forward to the next time.
All right, Rich, thanks. Anytime.
You bet. Thank you. That's Marv Albert.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.